look at a 50 ohm transmission line, what impedance or what resistance would you actually see there? If you look at 50 ohms, and you literally wanted to put an equivalent component there, wouldn't it be a 50 ohm resistor? How many see this right here? If you just wanted to load up a device, you give it an equivalent, something equivalent to this long transmission line, you could just solder a 50 ohm resistor right here, right? To the output of your amplifier. So when you look at this, what I can say is this circuit right here, the output or the input right here can be reduced to simply 50 ohms, and then I can take this 50 ohm resistor and put it in parallel with this 50 ohm that would be associated with Z naught. Then here I need Zn. Right there. What would Zn be for that? Take a look at it. Can you see it, Dave? What would it be?
75.
Sure, you're looking at 50 in parallel with 50. That would be 25. You would add in series with it 50, so Zn here would be 75 ohms. Does everybody agree? Now convince yourself. Because here's what I see on tests. They'll have 50 ohms and 50 ohms, and they'll say, well, it's just 50 ohms. We ignore this. You don't ignore it. Does everybody follow me on this? Don't ignore that. So that's 50 ohms. What would the actual value of the reflection coefficient, or S11, be then? This would be the reflection coefficient in port 1. Well, what would the reflection coefficient be? I came from an impedance of 50 ohms, right? Z0 equal 50 ohms? What would it be? Somebody else. How about on this side of the room, that first two rows? Antoine, what would it be? Just think about it now. If you don't know, don't worry. I'm not going to put you on the spot here. But what is always the reflection coefficient going to be? Isn't it the impedance I'm going into? Isn't that Zn minus the impedance I came from right here, minus Z0 over Zn plus Z0. Do you agree with this, class? And what would that be? Well, Zn is 75, Z0 is equal to 50 over 75 plus 50. That would be equal to 25 over, what, 125? What's that? What did you say? Oh, I heard 1.2. It's going to be 1/5 or 0.2. How many see this? The reflection coefficient. Now, I got a question for you. We got S11. Might we not just go ahead and get the value of S12 or S22? S22 would be the reflection coefficient of port 2. Look at class. Now here I'm going to get rid of this guy. And now when I do that, I would have to put the 50 ohm resistor here. The only reason I'm putting this here is so that everybody's got a mental picture that there's no reflected wave coming into it. Because Dr. Wentworth has an example where he gets the value of S11, and actually he goes through a more detailed analysis where he has a value that isn't matching. Now, he actually goes through the S parameters. And I don't want you to get confused. This is how simple it is to do these things, all right? For any kind of network, right here. He gives some examples that are a bit abstract in this book. They're good as far as teaching you something, teaching you how to do analysis, but they can get a little confusing. S parameters are very simple. How do I get this, the reflection coefficient at port 2? Well, let's take a look at what this would look like, the equivalent circuit of what this would look like. I'm going to draw it right here, if you don't mind, right here. Well, wouldn't I have 50 ohms here in series with 50 ohms? Do you agree with that, class? How many see this right? Y'all see it? So here I would have 50 and 50. Then I'd have to put a parallel value here, 50 ohms. I'm coming from a characteristic impedance here. This would be port 2. Coming from a characteristic impedance where Z0 is equal to 50 ohms. Go ahead and draw that. Slow me down if you need time. And I want the reflection coefficient looking in this way. What would it be? Now take a look at that. Be careful. I chose this example for a reason. There's several things people fall. They make mistakes right here. Well, what do I need to get the reflection coefficient, people? Somebody else, what would I need? I don't know. Damn. What do I need to get the reflection coefficient? Do you know or not?
Just gotta match whatever's in there.
I'm
Just
sorry?
gotta match whatever's in the circuit.
Well, we already kind of matched it, but if I'm looking this way, what do I need, class? I need the input impedance. How would you get the input impedance? Aren't these 50s in series? How many see that? So I could put 100 ohms there, right? It's in parallel with this 50. Do you agree, class? So really what I'm looking at right here is I'm looking with 100 in parallel with 50, and here's port 2, and I'm coming from a characteristic impedance equal to 50 ohms. So when I look this way, I got 100 in parallel with 50, that's 33.333 ohms. Or it's 100 divided by 3. So this is going to be equal to 30, the input impedance here would be 33.3 ohms. These two would be 33.333 ohms. That means if I wanted the reflection coefficient, right here, I would go into what? Characteristic impedance of what? What am I going into? Just say it. Class, 33 ohms, 33.33, or 100 divided by 3, minus 50 over, here it would be 50 plus 33.33. What's that value going to be? Somebody?
Negative 0.2.
0 minus 0.02. Keep that in mind. We've got 2 of the 4 that we need. Does everybody understand what I'm doing so far? Now, what I'm about to show you is not so easy. There's 2 things, but there's actually one thing that particularly makes people fall on their face. I need to get rid of this stuff here, so get it down. Yep. This is something he doesn't really come out and push on it, but anytime you're after S11 or S22, S12 or S21, you always match whatever port you're not worried about. In other words, in the real world, I'm just saying, I can come up with some abstract examples where you can literally take a short circuit out here. Nobody does this. He does it in court just to make sure you can do it. And you'll have a non-matched load. So you'll have the voltage feeding back into this thing. You'll get a reflection. To me, honestly, in the real world, you don't want both ports lit up. You don't want waves coming in from both sides. It gets bizarre. What you always want to do is just energize one port, look at what happens at the other port, and usually, let's say it's usually, there are exceptions. Usually you match the other port so there is no reflected wave incident. Does that make sense to everybody, class? Now I'll get to something where it gets a little more exotic, but let's get this part down. It's always matched. And if you're going to actually do this in the real world, I've never come up with a system where I had a 2-port system where you don't match the other port. Does everybody have this down right here, class? All right, I'm going to get rid of this. I think I can get rid of this stuff without having a problem. I'll say one thing too. In microwave circuits, when you actually get amplifiers and things like this, sometimes port matching is impossible. And that's something, if you're interested in it, you can actually take the course. But the main thing I'm trying to do is make sure you understand the fundamentals of how to do this. This is going to be Z0. This is Z0. Now we take a look. This one's tricky. There's some tricky things here, so please do. Now we're going to take a look at S21. Now, I don't know, you've got your notes here, I just put this up. S21 is equal to what? V2 minus over V1 plus with V2 plus equal to 0. Take a look at your notes, make sure you're convinced of this. You can get it from a matrix. Got it? By the way, if you can't see, please. Can you see over there? All right. If you can't see, let me know. If I've got this right here, really what I'm looking for is the output voltage ratio from the output voltage to the input voltage. Doesn't that look like a transfer function? Whenever we get the ratio of output to input voltage, how many see this? Think of it that way. Now, if I do that, here's what I'm going to do. I'm putting a signal here, V1 plus, it's coming in this way. I want to find out how much voltage V2 minus is developed. Remember, minus always means coming out of the port. Got it? When we do that, what we have to do first off, and everybody's going to see this, in order to get this, and I'm going to do a few things here. The very first thing I need is Zn right there. Do you agree, class? So I'm looking at port 1. For port 1, Zn would be equal to what? The Gabe said this last time. But I'm looking at what? If it's matched here, Z0 would be equal to 50 ohms, right? So I have 50 in parallel with 50, or 25 in series with 50, or my Zn would be 75 ohms. Now, if I want the transmission coefficient, there's two ways to get it. The transmission coefficient for port 1 is either given by 1 plus the reflection coefficient for port 1, and you're free to use that, but remember, reflection coefficient in general is a complex number. It's not always just a real number, so you can say this can be complex. And this is true in general, but it's especially true right here. It's also equal to 2 times Zn over Zn plus Z0. It's twice the impedance you're going into divided by the impedance you're going into and plus the impedance you came from. Now I'm going to mention one thing about this. With very few exceptions, you cannot, as a matter of fact, it would take me a while to come up with, the largest I can get is a value of 2. If you think about it. Suppose Zn becomes astronomically large compared to Z0. This would be something really big divided by something really big plus something that's inconsequential. So you get a value of 1 here times 2. It's about as big as it gets is 2. And that is called a Bloom line. How many see this right here? Keep that in mind. Can you see it before back? Now, if I have this, that's going to be equal to 2 times 75 over 75 plus 50. What do we get here when we do this? Isn't that 6/5 or equal to 1.2? Take a look at it. Run the numbers. 75 is 3 times 25 times 2 is 6 times 25. 75 is 3 times 25. 50 is 2 times 25. So it's really 6/25 over 6 times 25 over 5 times 25. 6/5 or 1.2. Now, what does that mean, the transmission coefficient? Here's where you write it down. That means when I have this V1 plus coming in here, I'm going to get a voltage right here. Call it V1 prime. V1 prime will be equal to V1 plus times the transmission coefficient. Now this is from EMAG 1 stuff with transmission lines. You take the transmission coefficient times the incident voltage, multiply them together, and you get the voltage on the other side of whatever this is. Like from the transmission line to the load right here, just on the other side you get this voltage. You're going to say, well, how can that be? They're parallel. Well, it has to do with characteristic impedance and mismatch. And when you get that, you can actually get an effect where you get a voltage increase. It's because the wave is propagated. You can't get this in a static environment. The voltage on one side is equal to the voltage on the other side. But when you get just past that, the velocity gets big, all right? Now, that is going to be equal to the voltage right here. Can everybody see that? Now here, this voltage itself is off the transmission line, it's into this network. Got me on that, class? Now when we're here, we take a look at this. What do we really have here? Can't I replace this, and I'm doing it on purpose here, I'll give you time to draw it, but can't I replace that simply by 50 ohms right here? I can simply say this transmission line is just like 50 ohms. How many see that? We've already done that, haven't we, class? So isn't this like, if I looked at this and drew an equivalent circuit, I really have something where I have plus to minus V1 prime, I have 50 ohms, and then I have 25 ohms right here. Take a look at that. You agree? Now, what happens is, this voltage is going to be reduced by the voltage divider network. And here, I'm going to get a voltage here, and I'll call this V2 minus because it's propagating out. V2 minus would be equal to V1 prime times, and it would be times 25, and you see this over 25 plus 50 over 75 ohms. Or really, I have V1 prime times simply 1/3. Now, I'm going to get out of your way. Make sure you see this. This is V2 prime. Do y'all agree with that, class? Because it's simple voltage division. Once this voltage here, take the input voltage times the transmission coefficient. This is the voltage right here. By the way, I don't mean to confuse you on this. Some of you probably are having some angst about this. Remember, the total voltage here is the sum of the incident plus the reflected voltage, isn't it, class? At this port on either side. Well, if you go through and do the analysis, the incident plus the reflected voltage right here on this side of the transmission line is equal to the incident plus reflected voltage on that side. And I'm not going to get off on that because that's secondary. I arbitrarily called this V2 prime right here. It's in the minus direction, excuse me, V2 minus, pardon. Because this wave's propagating out of port 2, and if it's coming out of port 2, I always assign a minus sign. Does everybody understand that? Anything coming out of the port is negative, going into is positive. It's a simple convention. Y'all got that? All right.
So why don't we do the same thing on that side with the reflections of having to have a V2 prime? Why is it just?
Well, I'm not done. All right. Let me get to this part. By the way, because these are actually in parallel, and there is no wave coming this way, this voltage is this voltage. All right. Remember, I try not to focus on things that are not that essential, but because this voltage on this side is made up of the incident and the reflected wave, remember, because that is the case, yes, the voltage here will be equal to the voltage here. The reflected wave is tau times V1, right? V1 plus. That's the reflected wave. The incident wave is just V1 plus. Well, what is V1 plus tau times V1 plus? Isn't it 1 plus tau times V1 plus? Oh yeah? What's that? Isn't that just equal to 1.2, the reflection coefficient? They work. It works. Stay on track here. Now, what do I get for V2 minus? I actually get V1 prime, which is equal to V1 plus times tau times 1/3. And therefore, I'm going to take it right here so I don't have to bend so much. Now I get V2 minus equal to V1 plus. Tau in this case was equal to 1.2 times 1/3 I can say V2 minus over V1 plus is equal to 1.2 over 3. And doesn't that come down to, is it 0.4 class? That comes down to 0.4. And that would be equal to S21. We have 3 of the 4. You all with me on this, class? Now, you as a class, take a look at what it would be. That's S21, and we have 0.4. What is S12 equal to? It's the same as this, only it's coming from port 2. It's the reverse voltage gain, or the reverse transmission coefficient. Now it would be equal to V1 minus over V2 plus with V1 plus equal to 0. Now go ahead and get that down. I know. I put up some stuff, and I'm kind of moving back and forth because I'm trying to make sure you see in the circuit what's going on. It's very important you see what's going on here. It's very easy when you see it. But there's so many little things people make some mistakes on. I come down to this point. Go ahead and write it down. Got it? In the back, do people have it? All right, if you got it now, how do I get this? I'm talking about doing what? I'll redraw this because this is really messy, but I'm just going to put it right here. For this circuit, I have 50 ohms. I have 50 ohms. This is my actual circuit right here. I'll draw the transmission line in blue. I have Z0 equal to 50 ohms here. And I have Z0 equal to 50 ohms here. This is port 1, port 2. Now I'm looking for a transfer function, voltage gain, what have you, when I look this way. When I've got a wave coming in this direction, V2 plus, what I'm trying to figure out is how much comes out this side, V2, V1 minus. And I want that ratio. How do you do it based on what I've done so far? Where do you start, class? Give me what might be how you start this problem? Well, think about what we need. Isn't this really equal to the transmission coefficient from coming into port 2? Do you agree with that? First, we've got to get this transmission coefficient through this interface from here to here. We need tau 2. And then once we have tau 2, isn't it just voltage division class? Let me see this. All right. So it's really going to be voltage division. What 2 resistors or what 2 values do I use for voltage division when I look this way? I'll let you get it down and I'll slow down. When I'm looking this way, if I get a voltage right here on the inside, right? What is dividing the voltage? What am I going to take a look at anyway? Well, isn't the output voltage being developed right across Z0 here? I want you to see this. Is it too messy to see or not? Can you see it or not? You got it, good? All right, well, if I wanted the voltage division from this point to here, isn't that simply equal to 50 and 50? And up here, you're not used to seeing it this way. This is where I have really my plus to minus V2 prime, don't I? And I want this voltage, plus to minus V1 minus. What would that be? It's going to be what? Just 50 over 50 plus 50, right? For 1/2. So it's going to be times 50 over 50 plus 50, or simply 1/2 times tau 2. How do I get the transmission coefficient here? That's right here. How about it? I'll draw it. Because I think there's some uncertainty. transmission coefficient here. What do I do to get it? I'm just putting it up so everybody can see it right here. How do I go about getting the transmission coefficient? What is that? I'm sorry. I'm looking at the transmission coefficient from this point to this point. If this is plus to minus V2 plus, how do I get this voltage right here? And I'm going to say this is plus to minus V2 prime. Because that way you'll know it's the voltage on this side. What would it be, class? Really? Well, if I'm looking this way, don't I need the impedance first of all right here, class? Don't I need Zn coming in port 2? What would Zn into port 2 be? I know it's bugging you, it's smart, because you see that 50 ohm, right? And then you see the 50 and 50, you see 100 ohms here. And that's what Zn is, right? What is it? 33.333 ohms. Got that. Now, transmission coefficient is always going to be equal to, this is going from the outside to the inside, is going to be equal to 2 times Zn over Zn plus Z naught. Do you agree? Or we could say 1 plus reflection coefficient. Either one is sufficient. I'm choosing to do it this way for a reason. So, this would be equal to 2 times 33.33 over 33.333 plus 50. And what do you get for that value? 0.8. Right? That's going to be how much of this wave appears here, the incident wave. Do you agree, class? All right, if that's how much appears here, how much is going to appear right here, where I have plus to minus V2 or V1 minus? What would that be? Well, wouldn't it be equal to the transmission coefficient right here? This is a voltage, you might call it a voltage gain, not really what it is. It's going to be a transmission coefficient. Then it's going to be times this voltage reduction that would occur right here. And it would be times 50 over 50 plus 50, or here I can see it would be 0.8 times 1/2 or 0.4. And that would be equal to V1 minus over V2 plus, or it would be S12. On your way. Now we create the matrix. Now we can say that the actual matrix, the S-parameter matrix for that network, remember, that was only 2 elements, 2 nice, easy elements. We had 50 and 50, and we put it into characteristic impedances of Z naught equal 50, and Z naught equal 50. And when we do that, what do we get for S11, class? 0.2. It's 0.2. What is S22? 0 minus 0.2. This is 0.4. This is 0.4. Aren't they the same for the S12 and S21? You have just got the S parameters. That actually is a more difficult problem. It doesn't start with that, and I wish he did, because here I showed you how parallel combinations of, I just use a resistor, I didn't put a capacitor there, but if 2 elements actually reduce the equivalent impedance, and a lot of people don't take into account the characteristic impedance you're going into. So that's the S parameter matrix. I need to do 2 more things that are going to be done quickly. But please get this down. Now, one of the things people look at when they measure S parameters, one of the most important things they want to see if it's reciprocal network. Here's what I mean by that. If I can take this network, and if I turned it around and it had the same S parameters, in other words, looking into port 1 is just like looking into port 2 for all intents and purposes. If that is the case, if it's a reciprocal network, it's important to know that for a lot of reasons. It means if you've got data going one way and the other way, there's not a problem. So for a reciprocal network, what they do is say this. A lot of people get irritated at matrix stuff, but there is a reason you have to use matrix notation for a lot of this. If a network is reciprocal, this is a reciprocal network. When I have that, if I have some matrix S right here, and I'm going to call A, B, C, D, just some arbitrary parameters, I can say S transpose, T is the transpose of the matrix, would be equal to, some of you remember this, it would be A, B, C, D. Do you remember how you do matrix transforms or transposes? You take this row and it becomes this column. How many remember transposes? If this is the case, if S equals S transpose, then this is a reciprocal network. So write it down. Now, that's important in the grand scheme of things. You need to know that, because when you do measurements, you would like that if you're doing any type of flow, power flow or data flow, it's bidirectional. Because if you get something that's not reciprocal and you put in something, a filter or something like that, now you have problems. That's the reciprocal network. The second thing you need to know is if it's lossless. Why do you think they would be interested if it's lossless? Think about any time you're dealing with transmission of signals. If it's not lossless, or if it's got a fair amount of loss, then you need a lot of really repeaters. You need things that increase the signal strength. Does everybody follow me on that? So it's important to know if your network's lossless or approximately lossless. Now, I'm just going to write down S as some matrix S. I'm not going to put down the A, B, C, D parameters. If I take S and I measure it, write this down. And I go ahead and I take this thing and I say, if I take S transpose, you know how to do a transpose, it's just row, column, interchange. Your calculator's probably good. Dan, can you see or not? All right. If you take the transpose of the matrix times the conjugate of the matrix, this is the conjugate, you will get, simply it's called the unitary matrix, or you get U. You will get 1, 1, 0, 0, and if it's a 3-port, you'll get 1s on the diagonal. But if it's the unitary matrix, then it is lossless. So if you get the unitary matrix, the network is lossless. I'm going to make one last point. Has anybody worked with S parameters here in the real world? One person? If you've done it, you probably know one of the key things everybody looks at. If you're in compliance or you're in a small company, you come out here and you're doing work. They're going to give you something that some engineer cooked up. Engineers, when they cook up stuff, often it doesn't behave the way they want it. They're going to put it on. They're going to put it on a vector network analyzer. And they're going to measure the S parameters, and they're going to find out if, when they do this, it's lossless or not. Or actually, you won't get a value of 1, you get like 0.97, 0.98, but they want very, very low loss. Next time we're going to talk about a few more things. Thank you for staying. See you. If you have questions, see you.